Well, hello, YouTube vintage radio restorers and collectors. One thing I want to talk about today is how to restore these radios and keep the cost down, because that is, it'd be nice if you really wanted to restore one with the best materials and stuff. You still don't have to spend that much. I'll show you what I mean. A lot of the stuff I use on these vintage radios, I've been fixing and restoring vintage radios since the mid-70s, and this is one of my longest used products right here, Mod Podge. What would I use that for? These speakers. It's to try to find these 5 1/4 speakers used to be very plentiful, and they're made by Aerovox, they're made by Pyramid, the third one, Jensen, and they usually were fairly universal and fit, and you could pick them up at electronic stores. Well, we're in 2024, about to be 2025 now, and they're a lot harder to find, and people will sell part out of radio and sell the parts if you have a more expensive or desirable radio to restore. You don't want me spending $70 just for a speaker. And here's what you can do. This one had a hole here, puncture. This stamped cardboard piece was loose, which meant the paper basket was loose, it was vibrating. This would have sounded absolutely terrible. So what did I do? I fixed it, I'm not kidding you, in 1 minute. And with the old Mod Podge, which has been around for years. So what you do is, first you patch the hole. And that is a piece of paper towel that's been cut to size and then Mod Podge down. And then I used, here's another craft store thing, these Sharpie markers to color it to match the black that's there once it had dried. And then I lifted this as I went around, which is a small craft store, dollar store paintbrush, and worked the Mod Podge in so it would get under the edge, and then seal the whole thing, and just the inner portion here. If you Mod Podge the whole speaker, sometimes it's too stiff, and it changed the sound characteristics. But this speaker will sound good now. And just by tapping it, there's nothing vibrating or binding. Voice coil, you can check with a meter, but it'll be good. And here's another thing that's really handy, another craft store thing. So we have this beautiful glass. And it's the type of thing, boy, I don't want to break that. Now set it here. We're going to clean it, and you can get just 50% alcohol from one of these craft stores or whatever variety store. And we'll start with the side that doesn't have any lettering on it, because this one is grimy. Hopefully you can see that okay. Got enough to get a little bit of light in there. There we go. So I'm on the non-printed side. I noticed there was some kind of lacquer on this one already. Somebody sprayed this whole radio to freshen the lacquer up, maybe gave it a quick sand. I'm going to strip down the case and redo it. Not that it's worth that much, but it means something to me. It's a radio that was made not too far from where I live. We did the front, seems to be alright. Back is where it's going to be touchy. This may or not be one of these that dissolves. You definitely don't want to use Windex. It seems the ammonia source. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe around where the original lettering is. And see how dirty that is? Then I'm going to just very gently go around there. This is really dirty. Just dab it. Wow, that's dirty. I'm just wiping it with the drier side of the cloth. Just lightly. Yeah, that lettering's not going to come off. If you treat it like that, it won't come off. It's going to need a little more polishing. You can see that. This was really dirty. I mean, houses were different back in the 40s, 50s, 60s. I remember showing up at, you'd tell people's houses, I'd show up at somebody's house, you could smell the oil furnace, you know. Another one, you could smell your uncle's pipe. At my parents' place, it was cigarettes. So that's, once that dries, see how, it's slimy, whatever's on there. It's going to take your time with it, okay? Don't get too crazy with it. I don't let that dry and then go over it, but there's some lacquer on there. Do not use lacquer thinner. So then we have this part here, which is like, look at the dirt on that, huh? Wow. Actually, it's amazing how good the paint is on the back of this dial. It's quite good. Those little wood blocks. Yeah. I've had sometimes have those break. You can actually buy from one of the dollar stores near me. They have boxes or bags of wooden shims. And I've used those in radios. You know, the block style that are in a radio case? Now, here's something. See those? That's what these clips had, so they wouldn't touch the glass. So they could hold the glass in place. And they are like potato chips. What do you use if you have a few pieces of rubber? Adhesive foam sheets. These are great for that. Find something that maybe matches the background fairly well. There's different colors here. I've got the few black ones in a cabinet behind me. But let's say, if you could go with the yellow, it would probably be alright too. And you just cut it in the original size and stick it onto the glass. And I've used this on the vintage ones. I've used it also on stereo stuff, like stereo tuning dials. I have a bit of a mystery on this one. These fell out of the case, right? I think they were actually like that. That's where I think those were, and they're in pretty good shape. So what I'm going to do is, when I have everything ready to go back together, there's just a trace of whatever was gluing it down there. I'm just going to put a little like school glue or craft glue and glue those back on, like right there, and then lay the glass. That's going to look so nice. And sometimes, let me just grab another thing. So many times these pointers, the paint's flaked off them because they've been scraping across the dial. And you can buy these. These are $1.49 at the craft store. And it's just basic acrylic paint. And so this is like an off-white. So it could repaint. This one's in nice shape, but some of them I've repainted that. Or the clock hands on one of those Telecron clock reel motors. This is the brush I use to do the Mod Podge on the speaker. And so there's a few things you can do, a few little tips. Doesn't cost a lot, and you can put the radio together so that it's the little details, like having the felts back in, the glass cleaned up, the speaker sounding good, that will make the restoration good. And I just want to mention one other thing. So, see, there's the cabinet. Hopefully you can see that part of it. I took out the asbestos and put it in a bag. I'm going to take it to there's a hazardous waste depot very close to where I live. Next time I take my motor oil, I'm going to drop off. There's an asbestos sheet. I just carefully took it out and slid it into a bag because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my heat gun and remove this lacquer, and then re-lacquer it with spray lacquer. It's available at craft stores, and it's about $12.99. There's very few brands. Krylon is one of the good ones, and I've used on some radios. It has a little bit of toner in it. That's how these were done. This wasn't rubbed in stain or anything. The lacquer had the color in it, and it was sprayed in a few coats. Anyway, so just a couple tips there. Thanks for watching and listening.